This is Michelle, and you're listening to Words with Michelle, the podcast, a show where I sit down and have conversations with influencers on a range of topics, anything from natural hair, employment, discrimination, food, relationships, and everything in between. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. If you want to send me an email, hit me up at michelle@wordsmichelle.com. Thanks for tuning into the latest episode of Words with Michelle, the podcast. Yes, you're right. I just posted an episode last Sunday. Even though I normally post every 2 weeks, I really wanted to air the show before the holiday season got underway. The topic for today's show is budgeting during a pandemic. And my guest for the show is Tanika Riley, a licensed financial rep, speaker, and community builder. Tanika is being honored this year as one of the 100 accomplished Black women in Canada for 2020 for her 15 plus years working in education, community development, creating innovative programs, speaking, and facilitating workshops. Please note that I recorded the show prior to the lockdown in Toronto and Peel in late November. I really wanted to get the show out because I know a lot of people out there who are not only stressed about their finances due to COVID, but also stressed about the upcoming holiday season. I really don't want anyone to endure any hardship, go into debt, or feel down about their situation. So I hope Tanika can give you some tips on how to budget during a pandemic. In this episode, we'll be talking about the top money concerns, creating a budget, using a financial advisor, how to save money, and lastly, how not to get into debt over the holiday. Okay, that was a mouthful. So I just want to say thank you to Tanika for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me on your amazing podcast, Words with Michelle. My name is Tanika Riley, and I have spent most of my life and my career working with community and working with families. And through those experiences, I saw that families and a lot of the challenges that were faced that looked like emotional challenges or young people acting out, at the root of it there was a lot of financial instability in families. And so over the last few years I have shifted my purpose in working with community to working with finances and empowering and educating families to understand how money works and how we can use it to manifest those goals and dreams we have, and to really just live a life with a little bit more abundance and freedom.
I like that you said that, because this is kind of tied to what's going on. Like there is a financial component to issues in the community.
Yeah, that's something I didn't realize. My mother has always been working in finances, and she's been doing financial empowerment with families for about 12 years. And I got my license around the same time that she did. But I was very focused on, building community in other capacities, such as working with young people, family, mothers, self-esteem, dealing with family conflicts. But when I would start to have these conversations, I would often find that there was a root cause and where finances would have made such a difference in these families' lives, whether it was losing someone and not having proper, protection, life insurance, or some people, young people wanting to get out of a home that wasn't, good for them. And then they don't have the finances to really go and stand on their own 2 feet. So they're left in a toxic home environment. And for myself, it made me say, I want to get my money and finances more in order so that I can be of better service to my community. Because maybe, I can buy a home and it could be a place for young people to transition out of living, in those environments. So I just kept coming back to finances. And even in my own life, my parents are Jamaican immigrants. And my mother was able to do so much as a single mother for myself in terms of paying for my education so that I had very little OSAP debt, and providing me with the opportunity as a young person starting out to save a lot by living at home and starting to create generational wealth. So time and time again, I was just reminded that community work, emotional work is really tied in with financial to financial work and financial knowledge and empowerment out there.
So what would you say are some of the top money concerns then? We'll just dive right in and say, what are the top money concerns?
Well, and some of this is because of COVID, and some of this was there long before we even understood what coronavirus was and is. And so some of the ones that, are right now very pertinent, because of COVID would be things like being out of work. So some people have lost, certain industries are really hard hit, like we know the service industry. So some people are just out of work. In Canada, if you look at globally, like the tourism industry and that we can, go into that, they're completely, I would say 90% done for now. But in Canada, being out of work is still a reality. In Ontario, reduced hours at work is very much a concern for a lot of people. So maybe they still do have that job, but there's not enough clients coming in to get more hours. Especially we're coming up into what would be November, December, a very busy time for a lot of businesses, and they're just not going to see that this year. But things like debt, that has been a concern in our industry for Canadian families for way too long, way before COVID. And I think it might be exasperated now, but for every $1 that a Canadian earns, we're spending $1.77. And that's like the stats for the last little while. So we are spending way more than we're earning.
Why are we doing that? And what are we spending on?
Well, that's a $1 million question. I mean, there's a lot of consumer studies, but we are definitely living beyond our means. We have forgotten the good old days, as they say, where people saved to buy things. It's that instant gratification. I don't know if social media has supported that, because, we can see what other people supposedly have. Yeah. Although let's be remembered that, social media is not real most of the time. Those people are renting all those things that they show you a lot of the times, but people want that instant gratification. So instead of saving up to buy that big screen TV, they're like, I'll put it on my credit card for $2,000. So people are living beyond their means. That's really what it is. People are living beyond what they make, and you have to be realistic. If you make this much, you have to spend under that. That's the only way to generate wealth. And we'll kind of talk more about this, but the only way to generate wealth, intergenerational wealth, wealth for yourself and your family, is to live below, spend less than what you make. It really is that simple.
And I like that, because it's like, I mean, we were talking before, and I was kind of giving you a little bit of info about me and like how I grew up. And I am the product of a single mother, like a single income family. So because of that, I will say, okay, maybe not cheap, but I don't like to live beyond my means. That's something that actually terrifies me, because I feel like, because someday it could just be pulled from under you, you know what I mean? So for me, I like to know where my money's going, even when I'm not working. Like, I mean, because in my career, I've had, good jobs. I had low paying jobs. I've been laid off. I've left jobs. So I'm always really aware of where my money's coming in and where my money's going. So I like what you said, like people are living above their means. Like, I guess, social media does have a lot to do with it, because you do see a lot of things happening. You're seeing people with new, like, nice sneakers, nice clothes. Luckily, that has no impact on me. It has zero. It never fazed me, but I know there's a lot of people that are actually impacted by that, or influenced.
They are. And, we don't want to, we're not going to shame anyone listening. If you kind of like right now are listening like, oh, that might be me. Maybe this is your wake up call, because we really need to look at, we become a way more materialistic society, like over the years, and it keeps getting more and more every year if you look at it. And I think that plays into debt, this consumerism. And so it does. That's why emotions and money are really tied. Maybe we'll have to have a whole podcast just on that. But
yeah, I think there's going to be money. This is going to be a series, because I feel like there's so much tied to this. It hits everything, actually.
Right.
Social, emotional, financial. Like, it's hitting a lot of different notes. So I think we're going to do a series on this.
And there's a lot of money concerns, like you were saying, like debt is one. And I was going to say another big two is paying your rent or your mortgage is a big concern right now for people, and has always been, but definitely with the uncertainty of work. And this idea of living paycheck to paycheck is really, you're just a few dollars away from, I know it might sound harsh, but living paycheck to paycheck is really close to, like, I would never compare it to being enslaved, because our ancestors, that was a different thing, but it is a form of enslavement where, you know, you just can't even stop, or your whole life will crumble. That is very
Yeah.
mentally
Terrifying.
burdensome to live like that. And we don't have to. There's really great strategies that I really want to talk about with you today to help people stop living paycheck to paycheck. There's tools and education that we can get to help us to say, okay, you know, I'm gonna prioritize not just having enough to get by every month.
So due to all the uncertainty, is it possible to budget during a pandemic? Because it is, like you said, like you mentioned, people have reduced hours, people have lost their jobs, people have to go back and live with their parents, or or people are living in their cars. So is it possible to either budget? I mean, those were the extremes. I mean, like living in their car or whatever. But is it possible right now? Like, say you're at reduced hours, or say you lost your job. Is it possible to budget during this time?
And I would say yes to that, because I know later on we want to talk even about savings, you know, but budgeting and savings go together, but they're not always mutually exclusive. You can always budget. If you make $1,000 a month, you can budget. If you make 2,000 or 10,000, you can always budget, because budgeting is being able to know what's coming in, and more importantly, what's going out, because that tends to slip through our fingers. We kind of, when I ask my clients what do they make every month, generally they know. When I ask them, well, where's it all going, that's when I get the blank stare, or the so I think we need to know both sides of the equation, and you can do that. That's not determined on how much you're making. So I'm going to say we can always budget. It might be a little tighter of a budget. And let me just say this too. 93% of millionaires say they use and stick to their budgets. Wow. And they're millionaires. So why does the average person think that they don't need to use one, or that they got it under control without doing one? You know, I like to follow people who are doing and living by example. Like, I'm like, oh, they have a nice lifestyle. What are they doing? It's pretty scientific. They're doing these key things and they're following a plan. And so that's what I think everyone needs to budget in some sort of capacity.
Yeah, you're kind of right about that. You made me think about when the pandemic just hit, and and of course you were limiting your time out. So you whenever you went to the groceries, you just start buying and buying and buying because you just didn't want to. So I realized I overspent during that time. I was just buying and buying and buying and buying. I didn't follow a budget. So you made me really think that, yeah, you do need to. I mean, even though you want to stock up, you don't want to go totally off your budget. So.
Right, you have to know. And I know when we talk, I guess we're going to talk a little bit more about what we need to think about when we're creating a budget. I guess I don't know if you want to get into that.
Yeah, let's talk about now. Yeah, why not? Like, what do we think about when creating a budget? Because a budget is it's essential to keep us on track. So what do we need to think about?
Yeah, so everyone should be doing it. And so what does that look like? And what should we think about when we're starting to create a budget? Well, this is an oldie but a goodie that we should always look at. How are we paying ourselves first? All of us, we spend a lot of time and effort working a job over 30, 40, X amount of years. And we don't, many of my clients, and I see this is just in the industry, don't have enough when it comes time to retirement, or they don't have enough to do what they want in their life because they're not paying themselves first as part of their budget. And what does that look like? So what does paying yourself look like? Well, a lot of my clients, when I sit with them, they don't use a budget. Most of them have never or kind of. And so one of the things is I give them a budget sheet that calculates everything for you. You put in the numbers and it lets you know, are you in the red or in the, the positive, the negative. And the budget sheet also has areas for what we call wealth building. And that's paying yourself first. So things like investments, putting your money away, not just sitting in a bank account for 1 or 2%, but actually investing for your future, whether it be through an RRSP, a TAC, TFSA, getting those government refunds when you use some of those vehicles, and getting, between 6 and 10% interest on your money instead of leaving it in a banking account. And so doing that's how you pay yourself. Invest for the future is one way. Also,
I don't mean to interject, but when you're paying yourself, like, how much would you be paying yourself? Like, is there a percentage that you want to put aside, or like,
It really depends on really what you're making, but I know when it comes to the other part of your budget, they say that, no more than 15 to 20% of your money should be going into your home and food, right? So like that means, again, not buying a big house that you really can't afford, because if 40 or 30% of your monthly income is going just for that, then you don't leave yourself room to pay yourself first. And that's why that term house poor came.
Ah,
Poor. They don't, very sparsely furnished. They can't take vacations. They're not saving for their future, or not enough, but they have a nice fancy house that looks good. Well, that never was appealing to me. But some people it is. But that's, again, what's the emotional root? Why do you need to do that? Because it doesn't make financial sense. And I'm sure you're quite stressed out behind the scenes. So what is the motivation for us to live beyond our means? But that's what it so in terms of saving, that's where you do the budget and you see what you have left after you pay your bills and your food and your little bit for entertainment. And actually with my clients, I say, after you pay your bills and food, let's figure out what you have left, and whatever's left, that's your entertainment.
that's right. That's
That's
right.
what you're entertaining, okay? Because short-term pain for long-term gain.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I wouldn't say that there's an exact number. It's really about sitting down with someone and doing a budget, and you figure that out. Also based on what your goals are, but paying yourself first definitely is investing. It's something, having an emergency fund is paying yourself first. An emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of your monthly income that you have put aside for an emergency. And that also helps us not live paycheck to paycheck. So that's one of those tools.
Okay.
Have an emergency fund.
I gotta be devil's advocate just because I could hear people saying this. I know people. See, they say that I can't do 3 months. I can't put away 3 months, or I don't have enough to.
Right.
In that respect, like, what would you tell them?
Well, I would say this. When we do a budget, we find a way. So yeah, you're not going to be able to find, so let's just say you make $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
So 3 months would be $6,000. Well, we're not going to be able to find that right away, like just out of that budget. But what we're going to do is look in your budget and figure out, where can we get $50 a month that you can start to monthly put that aside to maybe in the next 5 years accumulate that $6,000. It's not going to happen overnight. But what are the alternatives? Things happen in life unexpectedly. I mean, we're living through the largest example of that right now. So it's either you plan for it to happen because it's inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you wait for it and you panic and you get into debt and you have more stress. So my job is working with people to figure out, how can we, scrape that $50 to put towards the emergency fund every month, so you can have so much peace of mind when you go to sleep tonight, knowing that, okay, I'm not there yet, but you know how exciting it is to get that first month saved, where you know that if anything happens in January, you'll be good to at least March.
Yeah.
To have some breathing room if an emergency happens. You don't have to run around and be stressed. So I say, like, what are the alternatives to not doing that?
That's right. I guess just start is basically.
Just start. Even if it's $25, something. And we waste a lot of money. Let me say, I know I'm not talking about people that are like really maybe, on the borderline with living just above poverty. That's like a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't want to minimize people out there that might be experiencing that, because I truly do understand from, growing up with parents new to the country, and my mom coming from that, but then she did build up wealth. And so I know it's possible, but I don't want to minimize that, just to put that out there.
Yeah.
But, even people who are making what might be considered lower income, there is always money that we can scrimp and save for our long-term health. So that's some of the ways we pay ourselves first. Investments, emergency fund, putting away for short-term savings. Those are the 3 main ways that we're paying ourselves first. So that's not just bills, food, and entertainment, which a lot of the people, when I meet them, they are just paying bills and food, and the rest goes to, living, movies here, ordering food, Uber Eats, whatever else.
Yeah.
And they don't think about what is going for wealth building, paying myself first, my future, my family's future.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned wealth building. I like that because I don't think we think about that. I don't think we think about wealth building. I think we think about, paying my bills on time and you know what I mean? But we don't think about building wealth or generational wealth, like wealth for your kids or wealth for your family. I don't think we were thinking about that enough. And I see maybe I shouldn't generalize everyone, but it doesn't seem like, and I'm guilty of that too, though. You know what
A
I mean?
lot of us, so I think we could say collectively we, because if we look at the stats, so many of us are not prepared for the future with our retirement, with our kids funding, with our own lives. So it is a very big collective we. I would like to see the number shift so that it is less, there's a more talking to just the few people who are not doing it, but right now that's not the case.
Yeah.
And I like thinking of, because people often, Michelle, I'm really glad you brought that up, because people often think like of wealth building as something that like Bill Gates does, or, the rich people. But let me tell you that there's a lot of people that are millionaires nowadays, and that includes a home, because, it's part of your assets. And if you look at it, a home nowadays, $800,000 just right there. So a lot of people are getting to, say, a millionaire status with their assets. And how they get there, buying a home and having a little bit of savings, gets you to, millionaire status, and, and wealth building gets you there. And I'm talking about average people, like the average, like a person working an average, job nowadays, to get a house, it's $800,000. So if you're able to work with someone to save up to actually get that, and I know it's very unattainable, it seems very unattainable for many people right now.
Yeah.
And it definitely is harder than it was 10, 15 years ago. You can easily, maybe I take that back. You can, with the right discipline and right plan in place, put in the work to, get to that, $1 million status. But wealth building, even if you never want to buy a house or can afford to, even if you make $40,000 or $30,000 or 50, you are wealth building with that money. You can use that money to build wealth. It's not just for people making six figures, is I guess what I'm really trying to get at.
Okay.
The average family can put aside money to leave for family members and to create intergenerational wealth. And one of the biggest ways that we do that, especially in the Black and Indigenous community, is buying property. It really is. It is the fastest way to generate wealth in a family, is to have property and pass it on.
Okay, cool. Because I wanted to ask you what would be a way of having generational wealth, and it's through an asset like property. Then
a property is one of the best ways, and also just making sure that you have some sort of investments that you can live off of to retire with. But maybe if you're able to put a plan in place, you can even have some extras that you could leave to some family, so that when you pass, you're not expecting people to pay for your funeral and now people are going to debt. There's something left for them. There's a little bit of assets. Maybe there's a home, or maybe if there's not a home, there's still some money, and hopefully you teach them not to just go and spend that money. That here's 50 grand. Use it and keep letting it grow over time. And this is how we start to build up wealth in our families. But definitely purchasing property doesn't maybe necessarily always look like a house. It could be a condo, maybe even land that's maybe you're not building on it right now, but in 10 years, that's going to be the hot property where people want to build on it, and then you sell it. Owning land, a home, some sort of property is one of the easiest ways to build wealth. And unfortunately, in communities of color, I believe the last time I looked it up, less than 50% of families of color own property, compared to white families. It's in the 80% range that own property.
Huge difference. That's a major difference.
Here are some other things, could be also little tools. So I'm not a fan of debit cards. I know even during COVID, it's even more now because people don't want to touch money.
Yeah.
But here's what happens. You spend more when you're debiting. It's like a credit card. You're not seeing the money dwindle unless you're very disciplined, and I would say even a little anal, where literally every day, if you debit, you go home and you look what you spent. I'm a very big fan still of cash, and using cash in jars or envelopes. So if you get paid every 2 weeks, let's just say, and you put $300 in your shopping jar, your grocery jar, then you put, you know, 100 in your gas jar and another 100 in your entertainment jar for the 2 weeks. You can physically see. So now I got to go to the grocery store. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do a big shop. Let me take 200. And then I know, okay, for the rest of this 2 weeks, I only got 100 for the little run out of milk, run out of eggs. I can literally see the money, where I stand. Same thing with gas and the rest. You can see it. You take your 20 to go buy some food or 20 to go to the movies. Now you're like, oh, I only got 60 left in that jar. So if your friend calls you and like, let's go get drinks on Friday, you know, if you got $20 left and you got 2 days left, okay, go on. You're going to get paid. If you got $20 left in another 10 days, well, that's a decision that you're going to make that's very informed. Okay, I'm willing to not have any money left in my entertainment after I go out tonight for 10 days, or I'm going to have to say no, or come to my house and let's buy a bottle of wine for $10, you know, and come over. So I'm still a fan of cash and putting it in jars.
You got me with that. I'm not going to lie. Like, because I'm complete opposite. I'm more of a debit person, but I like what you just said. I think you may have converted me. I think you may have converted me with that, putting it in a jar so you physically see it. You got me.
And now let me just disclaimer, because I never like to take credit for things I did not come to. So this is from that show that used to be on TV with Gail Vox Oxley. I think Money, Money, Money. You know that show? I forget what it was called. But she recommended doing that with her clients. And I learned it from that. And I started implementing it. And I'm pretty disciplined when it comes to money for different reasons. Not just because I do this work. That for sure helps. But I find if I don't use my jars and cash, I overspend. And I'm pretty disciplined. So I often think of the person who doesn't use a budget, is not really clear on paying themselves first. Where are their finances at if they're debiting and putting everything on credit?
My credit card, luckily, I don't use okay, that's a lie. I have been using it because during the pandemic to buy stuff online. Prior to the pandemic, I only use my credit card for vacation. So I only use it every couple of years. I was not using my credit card at all.
And that's great. You know, people often, there's kind of two schools of thought in the financial world. Some people definitely say, and I'm probably there, like have one credit card. So everyone listening who has more than one, you know, let's get rid of them and just have one. And, you know, we'll drop my contact later. So if you need some help with that, but you'd only need one, please, one. And from there, you know, use it to build good credit if you don't have it. And some people use it for different reasons, but you really want to be paying that off right after you put that purchase on it. I mean, you know, and definitely before the end of the month. But again, if you don't do it right away, you forget about it. You're not seeing it until that bill comes in. And then you're like, shoot, when did I spend like $400 on my credit card this month, you know? And so really just have one. And if you're going to use it, pay it right off. Like if you put it on groceries to get points or whatever, come home and transfer that money from your account. So yeah, and I guess I would say to add to that, if you do love debiting and you're scared to touch money right now, I mean, wear gloves if you're scared about it and still use cash. But then you really got to be an extra level of discipline, which even I don't have. So God bless you if you do. But maybe it'll work for you that where you know you have $100 and it's in your savings account with your debit. When you spend 20, you got to make a note somewhere on your phone or somewhere on a piece of paper that you only have 80 left. So you need to have a running total in your head or written down somewhere every time you debit and take out from those areas. That's why I like the jars. I just look.
Yeah.
There we go. I don't have time to be that disciplined, but maybe some of your listeners do.
I have to admit, I'm not that disciplined because I would do my groceries. Like I'd hit like 3 spots, or at least 2 spots on either a Thursday or Friday, and I just debit. And I didn't think of it because I knew the money was there. So I'm like, you know, just kind of doing it all over the place. But no, I think I like it. I like being a little more cognizant or just being more aware of where my money is and how much I'm spending. So I'm going to do the jar thing. I'm actually, you know what? We're going to pick this up. Okay. So I'm going to do the jar thing.
Jar challenge maybe with your listeners.
And then we're going to pick this up in like say next year and you're going to ask me how it went and I'll let you know, but I'm going to do it because I feel like it's so smart though, you know, because you really and truly, you're disciplined. You're like, okay, this is what I said. I said I'm going to spend $200 on groceries. So why am I spending 300? You know what I mean? So if I put 200 there, that's what I should spend. So I'm going to do that. I want to try that.
Accountable, right? As you get closer to the 200, when you only have $40 left in the jar, you're like, okay, is the budget maybe off? Like maybe that's when you revisit. You're maybe like, I underestimated that 200 would be okay for 2 weeks. You know, maybe 240 is a better number, because that's another thing when I work with clients and I ask them, well, how much are you spending on groceries a month? They kind of guesstimate, and I'm like, okay, well, let's work with that number for now, but you may see that that was too much or too little, because if you're not, it takes a while. So what I would say with budgeting is have fun with it. Make it fun, because people often are like, oh, budgeting. Like, let's have fun with it. Let's make it exciting. And you tell yourself that. That's how you start doing it like that. You say, I'm going to have fun with this, because the fun part is how much can I save, because I'm putting away for me. I don't know. That makes me excited to know that I'm not working just to pay the bills.
True. Exactly.
So make it fun. And then I used to find, like, sometimes if I'm like, ooh, I have like $40 left in entertainment money at the end of 2 weeks, then now I just roll that in, and now I can use that 40, increase some savings or pay off my debt a little faster with it. So you get fun, and the more you save and you cut in really creative ways, you make it fun. And then you realize, oh my God, I saved $100 this month by doing that. And then you can do something really productive. Pay yourself first with that 100. And then it gets real fun when you start looking at your bank account and you see the money growing, and you can start to dream again. That's the thing. When people are not being mindful of where their money goes, they're also kind of hopeless. They're not dreaming big. They're not like thinking about maybe land they want to buy in Ontario or Canada, or if they want to get land where their family's from, or they want to pay for their kids' education. I don't know what people's goals and dreams are, but I know that not believing that you can reach your goals and dreams is a pretty, what would be the word? It's a pretty hard place to live.
Yeah. It's more, I'm not sure if the word is disheartening, or
Yeah.
like, you see no way out. It's just, you're just living for day by day. You know what I mean? There's no dream in sight. Like,
yeah, without our dreams, like, what are we without our goals and our dreams? And that's why, this is why I love this work, because doing this work is not just about crunching numbers. And I don't like paperwork, and a lot of my job is paperwork. But what I love is that single mother that wants to have a backyard and wants to leave a home to her children one day, feeling like there was no way to do it, sitting with her, getting her budget tight, telling her maybe you got to go get a roommate for the next few years so that you could save more to get your house, and seeing her come to terms with that. Light bulb goes on. Now she's saving $5,000 a month to get that home, and she's excited about it. She feels like it's possible now. And then even better when you get to bring a bottle of champagne and go and have a toast when they go and buy it. That's what I love, what I do, especially working with single parents, whether it's a father or mother, because they can feel like the chips are stacked against them in this world right now, when it comes to home ownership especially. So that's why I have fun with it. You gotta, we have these dreams and goals, so let's get there together.
Nice. Okay, so this kind of goes into, and maybe you did answer this. So is it possible to save during a pandemic? I think we kind of hit that. Like, do you think it's safe is it possible to save during a pandemic? Because I'm not gonna lie, like, we're all kind of like nervous. I mean, even though I said at the beginning of the pandemic, I was spending, because you're home and you're getting assistance. Like, there are people who were on CERB, right? So people were getting assistance, so they still had their money. So you're still spending your takeout, you're ordering online, you're buying all this stuff, but that's gonna serve ends at some point. You know what I mean? And then so now you're a little more mindful of your money. So do you think now that things are really a little scary? I mean, I know a lot of people that aren't working. I know a lot of people that aren't working right now.
Yes.
Myself included, right? So, like, how is it possible for us to save during a pandemic?
And I'm glad you said, some people, not glad. I want to answer the question, is it possible to save during a pandemic? That depends on your situation before the pandemic. Because if you're in debt before the pandemic, well, unless, your CERB payments end up making you have a little bit more a month, then probably not. However, what I'm seeing, and that's all I can speak to with many of my clients, new clients, or even clients that I've had already for a few years, they have found that they can find savings. And here's where they're finding it. And maybe some of your listeners will also relate to this. They're finding savings in gas because no longer driving around as much, whether it's to work, to family and friends' houses, or, those long distance journeys. They're finding savings in transportation, Go Bus, TTC passes, because they're working from home. They're remote working. So that's a big chunk of savings right there. People are finding savings with parking, especially if you park downtown. If you lived outside of the city in the surrounding suburbia, parking is a huge savings again because you're working from home or only going in once or twice a week. Daycare, a lot of people are keeping their kids home. So, daycare would be a huge savings for a lot of people if they are now limiting the days or taking their children out of daycare. Maintenance on your car, you're not driving it around as much, so the oil and it breaking down. And entertainment, let's be real, we are not going out as much, because I know I have a few friends that are huge entertainment people. I'm not going to name names because we're on a radio show here, podcast, but they love the restaurants, they love movies, they were spending lots. They aren't doing that anymore. Yes, they've replaced some of that with Uber Eats, but again, it's a lot less.
Yeah.
Because you go to a restaurant, you buy alcohol. That's a huge. So entertainment has been big for people to find savings, and those are the main areas. And so I think there is a good amount of people out there. Don't have any stats, but just from what I'm seeing when I talk with people that are like, when I ask them, how can we find money? And I leave them with that homework, they come back and they tell me, well, I found it in my parking because I'm not going to work, Tanika. I found it with the entertainment. And that's how I'm helping a particular client save for her house. We're like, where can we find this money? And so I say, yes, it is possible with the right support.
I definitely agree with the entertainment part, because I'm thinking I have no entertainment at this point. Like for the pandemic, I've gone out, actually I haven't really gone out, and whatever I've done has been free.
Because right? You're meeting up with your friends at the park now because you're just like, let's be outside, and that's free. And if you want to drink, buy a bottle of wine for $10.
Exactly. That's exactly
on the patio, right?
Exactly.
I think we should keep some of these habits, because a lot of the habits that we're developing during this pandemic, when things go back to this beautiful new state of awakening that I feel we're going through, because I'm very hopeful and I feel that we need that in this time, that we keep a lot of the lessons and the blessings that this brought us. Yes, it's brought a lot of stress and asking us to think differently, and it's been challenging. But I also think and know in my life and my friends' lives and those I talk to that there's been many blessings. And so can't we keep some of those things as we move forward, especially when it comes to our finances? So instead of where you thought you had to always go out to a restaurant on a Friday night, now you've gotten used to meeting up with someone in their backyard with a fire and just having a bottle of wine that you bought at the store. So do that more instead of, so there's so many ways that we can take these lessons after this has come and passed, which it will.
I think what this pandemic has shown us is that it's spending time with your friends is what you really care about. Forget about buying the bottles of wine or going and get the food. Yeah, that's good stuff too. But, think about it now, as opposed to going downtown, going to a restaurant, you're having a friend, we'll go to the park, you have a glass of wine, or you go for a walk. You know what I mean? So Tanika, is it a good idea for someone to reach out to a financial advisor? Do they have to pay for a financial advisor? Like, what would be the pros?
Oh, Michelle, that's such a great question, because a lot of people do think that you have to pay to have a financial advisor or representative. And so I want to clear that up right now, that not all advisors or representatives charge. Many are free, including myself. And then, so the next question that I get, well, then how do you get paid if you're going to sit with me? And I like to answer that because I'm very open and honest when I sit with my clients. And I don't want them to think there's some secret way. There's no secret way. When I sit with clients, there's no cost. And how I do get paid is if eventually we start to put a plan, if we put a plan into place and they love it and they're down to put this plan into place, then the company that we use in terms of they're like, yes, I want to start investing, Tanika. Yes, I need life insurance. So if something happens to me, my wife is not left to pay all these bills without me for the next 10 years. Then the companies pay me for putting that business in force with them.
Oh, okay.
I have a variety of companies I work with, so it's not just one, but that's how I get paid. So yes, there's times I work with someone and they decide to maybe not use the plan. And so, yeah, I just gave up my time. I consider that some of my volunteer time. But most times people see the value in what I am showing them, and they see the benefit for their lives, and they're motivated to act. But that's just to answer it. You can find someone that doesn't cost you any money. And I say and so once you know that it's free or complimentary, then I would say 100,000%. Because I asked Michelle, if you broke your arm, would you ask your mom to fix it, or would you try to fix it, or would you go and find a doctor to fix your broken arm?
Gotta go to the doctor.
Okay, so then why do we treat our finances? Our finances are like a broken arm; they're not working properly. But we're gonna super glue it back together somehow with our limited knowledge, limited time, limited capacity. And I think we need to take the shame out of it, because we are not taught these concepts and this knowledge in school. So unless you have a parent that knows those things, and then second of all is willing to take the time to have taught you that in a way that works for you and you understand it, where are we learning these concepts to implement? We only learn it when we sit with someone that cares and is going to help you do that. So yes, do it. And I also have some stats to back it up. It's not just because, some of your listeners will be like, well, that's because that's what she does for a living. So here's some stats, okay, for everybody out there, why it's a fantastic idea to have an advisor. Is 81% of people who use a representative or a financial advisor feel they're on track with their finances versus 44% who don't. So that means they're sleeping better at night. 10% of those same people say they're on track to retire versus 22%. And that's why we have a lot of elders at Tim Hortons, at McDonald's, at Walmart. You see the age group of those people? They didn't have a plan.
I know for a fact that is true. Like I could vouch for that stat, because in my previous job, I was an employment counselor. And what I noticed is that my clients were getting older and older. I had clients that were in their 70s, no joke. They were in their 70s looking for work. It was the saddest thing, because I knew I couldn't really help them. Do you know what I mean?
And that's why that age old motto, and I use a lot of those ones, because there's a reason why they're age old, and it's people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. No one gets a job in their 30s and is like, I'm going to work for 30 years, whether it's with the same company or various jobs, and when I'm done, after all that sacrifice, I'm going to have $10,000 to my name. No one. But when I often ask my clients, one of the things we ask is, well, do you know what your FIN number is? Which is your financial independence number, which is how much money you need in order to retire in, say, by 65, generally keeping a similar or slightly reduced lifestyle than what you have right now. Because, people generally want maybe similar or slightly reduced. They don't want to be like living in poverty. And maybe they don't want to be living, So I say, well, what's that number? What are we working towards? Do you know that? 90% of people don't. And that's okay. But how do you plan if you don't even know what you're working towards?
Yeah.
Then what? You're just going to throw a number out the wall? I'm going to start saving $150 a month. And you hope that sticks? Where do we get this $150 from? So we need to have these conversations, and we need to have a plan. And that's the main thing that I think an advisor, a representative does for a family or an individual, is they put a concrete plan in place and they work with you to stick to it as best as possible. We know we're going to have our moments. We fall off, just like a diet, just like exercise. You do well, and then you have months you fall off, and you get back on, and you know what your goal is, though. That's okay. We're human. That's no problem. But not having a plan, that's a problem. Yeah, and that's what I would say. Why it's definitely a good idea, because most people who don't use an advisor don't also feel very unprepared if a financial emergency happens, like right now. And I know that clients that I've had and clients that my mom has had, where we put emergency funds into place when COVID hit, they weren't as stressed because they had a buffer.
Well, so Christmas is right around the corner. I mean, for those celebrating Christmas, there's other celebrations as well. There's Hanukkah, there's Kwanzaa. So how can people not get into debt over the holidays?
Yes, the holidays. Yes, and it doesn't matter what you're celebrating. generally, people getting together, some sort of gift exchange and good times. And some of those good times can cost us a lot. And I see this all the time. We see in January, people wanting to take money out of their retirement savings or places that we don't want them to touch to pay down debts. Or you see it happening now, November, December, people are like, Tanika, can I stop that monthly payment? And I'm like, okay, but let's have a little quick conversation about it. That's why it's also good to have a representative, because we might, you just question for a second. Stop. Why do you want to stop contributing to your long-term goals for the holidays? Okay, let's have a conversation, because most people are overspending again over the Christmas time. And so one of the things to not get into debt over the holidays is stop trying to impress people with expensive gifts that you can't afford.
Thank
That's
you.
the first one. I'm sorry, I can be a little straight with my clients and with your listeners, because a lot of us, not all of us, are doing that. We're trying to impress people, but with nice, fancy gifts. So first of all, stop doing that.
I second that. I completely second that. I'm not about that at all. I don't know. I think our family's kind of weird though, because we stopped doing big gifts years ago. We mainly just do like a big shop for, not even a big shop, because even my nephew, he's pretty good about it. We just shop for my nephew. Do you know what I mean? So,
and that's probably not realistic for maybe other families, but we're, in terms of maybe having more kids or more people. But I think, first of all, stopping with the expensive gifts. And, well, what does that look like again, right? So set a budget. Set aside X amount of dollars, so $200 to buy X amount of gifts, and put that again in your jar. And when that money is done. It is. So, figure it out. Figure it out how you're going to use that $200 the most creative way you know how. And know that things like gift cards, like, I know we can't go to the movies right now. So, before you'd be like, $20 gift card to the movies, better than, a $60 pair of jeans. Like, but get creative, but know what you're willing to spend. Know what you're willing to spend and be very disciplined that you're not going over it, at all or by much. If you spend $250 and you said $200, I'm still going to clap for you. Very good. And I think this is where we get back against the emotional ties that money has. Why don't we just have open and honest conversations with our family and friends? Tell your family and friends, you know what, Michelle, I'm really realized I wasn't prioritizing wealth building and my family's financial future. And I made a commitment to start doing that. So moving forward this year and the years ahead, I'm not going to be spending like I used to over the holidays. And I want you to understand that, because I'm doing that for my family, for my, my kids, for my future grandkids, whatever. I'm prioritizing that. And maybe you want to do that too. Let's just have open and honest conversations. You don't have to tell everybody how much debt you're in, because I know there's a lot of shame around that, but just you're prioritizing your wealth building and your family's financial future. And if there's anyone in your life that can't understand that, then I might ask for you to evaluate that relationship in your life and how it's really serving you and your highest good. Because if someone would have a problem with that, well, I might just have to sip my tea. No one can see your viewers sipping my tea right now. No.
Yeah, no one should have a problem with it, because when it comes down to it, it's personal. It's your finances, right? Like, I mean, and to be quite honest, I don't believe that these celebrations are tied to gifts. They don't have to be. It's become that, but that's not what it is.
Exactly. We got to get more creative again. And, maybe it's not the gifts, but maybe, I used to have an aunt where she didn't want you to bring nothing. She was going to do the whole spread. And I'm like, that's expensive. When I do Christmas dinner, I'll do a few things, but who's bringing that? Who's bringing that? You can call me cheap or whatever you want. I'm going to be mortgage free soon. So you could call me anything, but don't call me in debt. That's what you're not going to call me. And
I'm clapping for that statement. I like that.
So have also conversations with your family, maybe about reducing holiday spending in whatever ways, if it's decorations, if it's dinner. What are other alternatives that we could do? Like Secret Santa, which is, we put everyone's name in a hat and everyone just has to buy one gift for maybe your immediate, for the larger family. Maybe in your own, nuclear family, you still do everybody, but, the auntie, the uncle, the cousins, which can get crazy, do Secret Santa. Everybody buy one.
Yeah. I
You
think
can,
I like that because because if you still like gift giving, you still, you know what I mean, it's still fun. It's a surprise. So it hits everything. It hits all the notes, right?
and you can do that. And let me tell you, and then you can, maybe cap it at $50 because now it's only one gift. So
Yeah.
everyone gets something quality.
Yeah.
Maybe you only buy for children, like in certain families where there's only like a few children, the adults forfeit and it's just about the kids. And that also can save money.
Yeah.
Also, maybe you put a cap. You and your family decide, okay, there's a cap of $20 per gift. And everyone stick to that. So someone doesn't get like a Gucci bag and then someone gets a bath bomb, like
That's
people,
funny.
everyone knows $20 is the cap, and you don't know how many people you're buying for. It's $20 a max. Or, what I like to do with my family is let's figure out how we can have an experience together. And I know COVID has shifted that because that might have been like going out to dinner or going, like renting a little cottage for the weekend and just all being together, and we all pool our money and just have that weekend together with, hot cocoa and maybe building snowmans, that like holiday Christmas card, but an experience. Let's pool our money to have an experience together, and we decide what our caps are on that. Or another thing that I love to do with my family and friends, my friends actually, in lieu of gifts for each other, we all decide what do we want to support in our local community. So this year we're looking at like a women's shelter because we understand that, financially women and children are still on the bottom of the totem pole. So we're going to pool what we would have all spent, $20 here for each other and $20 on the kids, and put that money in and get the kids to make little gift baskets for kids their own age at the shelters. And we're going to donate a basket and some money in lieu of us doing all these gifts that the kids would just throw out anyways. So, get creative and remember that it's really about being a service this time of the year. It's really about being service. And that's what brings that holiday spirit, not all the fancy gifts and the, expensive, and definitely not going into debt. That's no spirit, no holiday spirit there when you open up your bills in January and you feel like you don't know what you just did.
Yeah.
And now 2021 looks real bleak,
So you don't start the year off like that. You know what I mean? I mean, I've been there. Like, I can only speak from experience because I've been there. I did overspend, and this was when I just finished university. I did overspend over Christmas, and man, you're scared when you get that bill. You are terrified, and I don't want to ever go through that. And I kind of made that a point that I'm not gonna get like that. So I think that's why I'm really strict. I mean, I can always learn. I mean, like you gave me great points today, great tips and stuff like that. And definitely for Christmas, I feel like everyone's had such a hard year, right? Don't make it even harder and go into debt. Do not make your year harder.
Yeah, let's love ourselves. Let's be gentle with our friends and our family. If even people are like, let's do no gifts and let's, get together in maybe smaller groups. But, let's all be gentle with ourselves and let's love ourselves. And we love ourselves by prioritizing ourselves and our families sometimes first. Like, that's why on the plane you put the air mask on yourself first, not your kids, not your cousin a few aisles back. You put it on yourself first, and finances is so linked to our mental well-being. And I know we're spending a lot of time during this time of COVID, even before, focusing on mental well-being and how can we be well. And if we leave money out of that conversation, we're missing the mark, because money is the top two causes of stress for families and individuals. Financial stress, burdens, keeping people up late at night. And I see it every day when I talk to people. It's one of the first things I ask them, so I can get right to where we need to be. What is keeping you up late at night when it comes to money? Wow. And I can see where they're at. And there's no shame if there is things keeping you up at night. There's no shame in that. There's none at all. Let's just do something about it. Hope comes through putting a plan into place. That's how we have hope. We have to have a plan.
It's beautiful. On that note, I want to say thank you for all this information that you've given us. It was, like I said, I'm taking some of this information. I'm going to use it in my life, and I will be preaching it to my friends and family. I feel like they need to know as well. For people who don't know who you are, Tanika, please give me your contact so they can contact you if they have questions about this.
I would love that. And I love what I do as well. I'll just add this, whether it makes it in or not, is that, a lot of representatives and financial advisors, they deal with people with large amounts of money to work with. What I love about my business and the company I work with is that we're for the middle average family and below. So I don't care if all you can save is $25 a month and that's all you can invest. I'm willing to work with you and put time into you to see you grow and reach your goals. And so it's for everyone. And if that fits you, if you got, 1,000 to invest or $25, you can reach me. If you're on Instagram, I'm always posting tips and tools, just reminders to help us stay disciplined and focused. You can find me at Tanika Riley _abundance. So Tanika is TANIKARILEY _abundance. ABUNDANCE, because that's what I'm here for you, to help create abundance in your life. Or you can reach me, call me, text me, 905-626-1773. This is great. I don't know when this will launch, but even if it's sometime early December and you're listening, take these tools and use them and create a really beautiful holiday season that when January rolls around, you have great memories and you still have a smile on your face.
Beautiful. Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for being a part of the show and for helping me as well as the audience. So thank you so much, Tanika.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone. And thanks to all the ones listening. And thanks, Michelle, for always having really thought-provoking, important conversations for us. We appreciate you too.
Thanks again for listening to the latest episode of Words with Michelle, the podcast. I really enjoyed recording this show because I know firsthand how tight finances can be right now. Thanks, Tanika, for providing tips on saving as well as suggesting ways for us not to overspend this holiday season. Just a reminder, you can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also listen to the shows on my blog at wordswithmichelle.com. If you have any questions or would like to provide a comment or feedback, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email me at michelle@wordswithmichelle.com. You can also email me if you'd like some information on how to sponsor my podcast. Thanks again for listening to the show. Until next time, bye.